He was actually in the office when we moved in here, when there was no furniture in the office.
So basically, he started it.
He's the one who founded Cornerstone. Yeah. The Ninja was found by my she's almost 5. When she was 3, I guess, at the time, she found him. And I was like, where'd you get that? She's like, pointed. She just found it like on the floor. He was the only thing in this office. And so he stayed. He used to sit on top of the TV. And then when we got this sign, he just went on top of the sign. And he's sort of like an elf on the shelf.
Right.
We just kind of move him around from time to time.
Be in the E. Yeah, spice things up.
Yeah, move him around. So per our last conversation, we have decided to name this the Nameless Recovery Show.
Oh, okay.
So, hello and welcome to the Nameless Recovery Show.
Yes, thanks for having me on the Nameless Recovery Show, Estel.
So you guys are getting ready to go out of town and go tour some more. Where are you touring? You going to Europe?
We're going to start off going to Australia.
Australia?
Maybe. We'll see. We're going until we're not. It's sort of a day-by-day kind of assessment at this point.
And are you guys going to be playing a lot of the new album?
Yeah, we'll be playing stuff from the new album. It'll be new album weighted because that's kind of our that's the reason we're going on tour.
Sure.
But I know it's always kind of a bummer when you go see a band play and you
don't hear your favorite song.
You don't hear the things that you know from them. So we take that into account when we're making our set lists. For sure.
So in the 555 video, which is my new favorite from you, are you going to wear any of the makeup on stage?
Probably not.
Okay.
I sweat a lot. So that would be like it would just, by maybe the 4th song, it wouldn't look anything just like it's supposed to. Yeah. I'll leave the makeup and prosthetics to the professionals.
Oh, that's fun. So I don't have any written down questions. I do have some questions in my mind, and I really just want to see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, man, totally.
My first question is really, what was your perception of recovery before you got into recovery? Or better yet, what was your perception of addicts or alcoholics? What, in your mind, what did a drug addict or an alcoholic look like? And were you it?
Well, I mean, I don't think. I mean, I think in the back of my mind, I knew that I had the ism of alcoholism going on, but it's just not anything that I was willing to bring to the forefront of my mind, or let alone say out loud.
Sure.
Because then that was real, and that would mean, change of some kind would be necessary.
Eek.
Because I didn't, want to. I certainly didn't consider myself an alcoholic or an addict. And if I were to admit that, that would mean that, okay, I'm that. And I guess I had, a really vague idea of what an addict might be. Like as in maybe, like portrayals of like Sid Vicious.
There we go. That's what I want to hear. I want to know what was in your mind's eye.
Kurt Cobain, like just
all stage performers naturally.
Yeah, stage my world.
Yeah.
You see people getting there's no shortage of stories of people ruining their careers and professional lives and passions in the music industry with drugs or alcohol or any combination of
tons
of bad things. So, to admit that would mean that I'm on that road. And I didn't want to be on that road. I wanted to not think that I'm on that road. So it was kind of related to the industry and people around me.
You managed to live and keep partying beyond the age of 27. That's good. It's a win.
Yeah. So it's like, of course I might not be an alcoholic because I'm still alive past 27. Like, I got this. That's not me.
What's with that? Why 27? Why do rock stars die of drug and alcohol overdoses at 27?
Maybe you think you're the most invulnerable
at 27.
You got a little bit of knowledge, like, yeah, I know what it's all about, but you don't.
And you're still young enough, you could probably recover from most things.
It's like that might be your late 20s is kind of where you really got to start watching what you eat, and your metabolism's slowing down. Your body isn't like, you're not the invincible 18-year-old on all fronts anymore. So maybe you kind of take more than you can handle.
It's interesting. I remember over the years, growing up and seeing different musical acts, different musicians and artists die around in their late 20s.
Yeah.
And I still never equated myself like with that. To me, that was like what other people did.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's the whole ego taking over. It's like, the ego trying to protect itself. Like you're looking for the differences.
Mm-hmm.
You're not at all concerned about the similarities. It's just about the differences and protecting that kind of, even though you might have like absolutely no sense of self-worth, you still think that like you're better than everybody in a weird way, or like you're not like them.
I thought like I wasn't as cool as them. To me, there was like a mystique around those guys. The Jim Morrisons and all these guys that died in their late 20s.
Yeah, I couldn't possibly be a rock star because they're all dead at 27, and here I am at 35 chugging along. Yeah, definitely not as cool.
No, I wasn't. At least not in my mind. So then, prior to getting into recovery, did you know anybody in recovery? Did you know anybody that you knew had carried the same type of burden you had known the same type of pain and loneliness that actually had turned it around?
Well, I wasn't sure about their whole story, but I definitely knew some people who were able to stop through taking action and going headfirst into recovery. So it was like I did have that kind of personal example around me in my periphery of friends. But that's all I knew. Like I didn't know anything about like. I knew a little bit about what recovery was sort of like from listening to just like Mark Maron, because he talked about his experience a lot and how his guests on, who are like talk about their experience a lot, and that kind of.
Are you talking about that podcast?
Yeah,
the one where the guy dies.
No, not Dopey.
Oh,
I didn't get into Dopey until like, years into doing this thing. But especially like listening to like Mark Maron talk to Michael Keaton, about like his role in Clean and Sober.
Oh yeah, I saw that movie when I was a kid. My dad made me watch that movie when I was a kid.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like, I mean, definitely helped plant the seed a little bit of there's all these like little seeds that get planted along the way on your active alcoholism path, and that was definitely one of them. It was like open the door thinking like, well, this sounds like they're better.
I'm gonna look up that interview. I'm super curious now. Yeah, my dad made me watch that movie, that Michael Keaton movie, when I was a kid. I don't know if that was supposed to be some type of diversion tactic. It did not have the effect he was hoping. I was like 13 or something.
Yeah,
I was like, this is weird old people.
None of those.
Like,
none of those things like. None of those things kind of quite do it if you're not ready to hear it. Mm-hmm. I remember having doing in Cub Scouts, having like the DARE officer come in,
right,
with their display case of all these drugs, and I don't know what the point of that was, like to scare you into think, oh, if you see one of these, you need to tell a teacher, you need to find an adult, you need to say no. Here's what hash looks like. Here's like, and I was just thinking like, oh man, I wonder what those would do. I wonder what all those would feel like. Like, I was like, oh man, cool. It wasn't like be scared of these. It was kind of the opposite.
It's interesting because DARE, I think, was a well-intentioned attempt at drug use prevention, but God, they really screwed the pooch on that one. I remember DARE coming into our school, and we were already messing around with weed by the time I encountered Dare. And this officer gets up and is like, marijuana will shrink your balls. And I then didn't hear anything else he said because I was like, you're wrong.
Oh, man.
You're lying. Like, you don't know. What else don't you know about? Basically everything in our minds.
Yeah.
There's a little group of us that were all little potheads, and we were like, yeah, that's not true.
Right.
Instant credibility lost. It's just gone.
That's kind of like, you know, the like people sitting you down and watch Hell's Bells, The Dangers of Rock and Roll. Like, you know, like really? Dude, if you took like the people that produced Hell's Bells and put them into the world now, like they would like instantly like have a heart attack and die probably. They saw what like
just at Target, just like shopping for shampoo.
Yeah, like, you know, listening to what gets played in Target, they would have a conniption fit and die.
Oh, that's so funny.
What do you think would be like so, you know, it was just like a credibility issue with them. You think like the DARE officer and
that seemed to be the problem in the school I went to with the
and plus like they have an authority you have an authority figure telling you what to do.
A guy with a badge.
A 14-year-old boy is not going to respond well to like an authority figure coming in and saying you need to do this or you're gonna have tiny balls. like, you know,
it stands out.
And that's, you know, but that's like that's kind of like, you know, like an alcoholic or an addict sitting you down and telling you what's up is a lot more relatable when you have that shared experience. Like,
yes,
a police officer coming in is like you're kind of on edge anyway. You're not gonna
don't do drugs, okay?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, I wonder, you know, what would the actual tools be that you could give like kids to have some kind of sense of it's a lot bigger of a conversation than you can have in like a 15-minute school program with a guest lecturer person.
Yeah, it would be very difficult. I've been thinking about prevention measures lately, and it is a complicated issue. I've got ideas on how it could be presented in a way that could be heard, because it's not the message so much as it is the way it's presented.
Right.
Because you got to connect with kids.
I think there is some success when you talk about like bullying.
Sure.
Like you definitely see, you know, kids watching out for other kids and noticing bullying behavior and calling them out on that, and there's a stigma to that, so they all kind of like, oh wait, I don't want to be a bully, or like, oh wait, that is bullying, I shouldn't do that, or, you know, don't bully him. Like it's like there is that sort of awareness there. So kind of, you know, incentivizing like, you know, behavior that could lead to a sense of self-worth that's sustainable,
right?
Like is possible. I just don't know. Like there's got to be like many ways to get there, and I'm
how
sure
do we
people are probably like much better and qualified than me are thinking about it already, I'm sure.
Wait, but it's a valid question. How do we teach young people who are just starting to experiment with drugs and alcohol that like, hey, getting fucked up is fun, but you might find it so fun that you won't live the rest of your life?
Yeah.
How do we?
I mean,
how do we tell kids that?
I don't know, man. Like, because it is something that all kids are going to do. They're all going to be curious about it. They're all going to have a phase like where they might try something, and yeah, it's gonna feel really good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that's the problem with the big scared straight idea. It's like you tell a bunch of kids that, you know, all this stuff is poison with skull and crossbones, and then they smoke a little weed with their friends, and they're like, those grown-ups don't know what they're talking about.
This is the best day ever.
Seriously. Seriously, everybody was all these adults are fucking wrong.
Right.
Drugs are awesome. And they're sneaking around, and now we're teaching them to keep secrets, and and then if they buy drugs on the street, now they're learning how to commit felonies.
My thesis is that it's the same fundamentals that you tell adults, you know, because the adults, addicts are kind of like, you know, arrested development kids when it comes down to it.
Yes, they are.
You know, like, and it's really just life fundamentals about where you get your sense of self-worth, the this, that really matters is what you're trying to fill the hole with unhealthy coping mechanisms like drugs or gambling or pornography or whatever, sex or whatever it is that you're trying to fill the hole with, isn't doing it. So it's like that's kind of what you need to, that's the thing that you need to, help people turn the lights on and see. But it's,
well, that's at the core of the issue.
Yeah.
Is these things make it possible for me to live. And that's the wrong message. And people can take even money. People can take any one of those things, sex, money, drugs and alcohol, gambling. They can take these things, which for the average dude or gal might be a risky sort of, dubious fun thing. Like, oh, this is kind of it's like going to Vegas for a weekend. But for 15 to 20% of the population who's got a predisposition for alcoholism, for addiction, like it could be a death sentence. You could be finding, like you hear so many times in the rooms of recovery and people that write about recovery and sing about it, they're finding a way to stake their place in the world. They're finding their identity. They are finding a way to cope with daily life. It's like, all right, yeah, getting fucked up is fun sometimes, I guess, but do I need to get fucked up? Do I need to drink?
Some people have the disposition to take it all the way, and some people can drink like a gentleman,
Right.
Like some people, I am not that person. Like I have friends that'll pour half a beer out because it got warm.
Yeah.
I don't understand that at all.
I don't
understand that at all. That's not me. I would never do that.
Nope. I don't use the little cup with cough medicine. Never in my life. Never.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah. Order a drink and not finish it. That doesn't I don't even understand.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Like you have half a martini left. I'm good. I don't get it.
No, that seems wasteful. And I'm like that with food too. Like I got to be careful with portions. Just that, and it's weird how it's so similar. Like I get ice cream in pints for a very simple reason. That's the serving size. I'm gonna eat the pint.
Yeah.
Frustrates me when they
I get you.
When they tell you that the pint is like 5 servings. It's like, no, I got to do math. Why don't you just tell me how many calories are in this? Because I'm gonna eat the whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
But that's
true.
That's how I eat sugar alcoholically. It's the same with drugs and alcohol. If we got a bottle of vodka, I don't know that I'm going to drink the whole thing.
That's the serving size.
But that's
the bottle.
Yeah, that's the serving size. I mean, there's not some goal in mind. I want to get fucked up. That's how much we've got.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. I'm right there with that.
What do you think? What do you think got you willing to commit to living a new life in recovery? Because it's, like you already said, it's scary.
Right.
There's a lot of fear around it for many different angles. You've got the fear of stigma. Will this harm my reputation? You've got the fear of, what if this actually works and my whole life changes? You've got the fear of, what if I try and fail?
I don't think it was any of those things. There wasn't necessarily a fear of a stigma because, musicians all the time, come out as like addicts or alcoholics, and that doesn't really affect their,
that's good. You're in the safe zone there.
People sort of expect that you're a complete wastoid anyway.
that you might want to party backstage after this.
Until it's like you're guilty until proven innocent as far as like being a wastoid, worthless, party animal person. So it wasn't necessarily that. I think it was just sort of just fear of what happens, because that's totally unknown. It's like, I control this, and if I take that away, like, yeah, I'm driving the ship into the ground, but I'm the captain.
Yeah.
It's like the letting go of control. Like what happens on the other side of that if I do have to admit to myself and really breathe that in, sit in that bathtub full of admission that I'm an alcoholic. That's a pretty much that's an entire life encompassing thing to admit.
So what got you over the edge?
Seriousness of it wasn't lost on me leading up to it. And that was kind of scary to think that, like, after that, if I'm willing to, but I guess I kind of did know that. I just wasn't really ready to do anything about it.
Right. Well, so then what pushed you? What was the straw that broke the camel's back? What was it that finally got you to say, fuck it, I'll try this. I'll try and get sober?
Everything I wanted wasn't coming my way anymore, and it was like the happiness. It was no longer a party. It was no longer when you're drinking like a 6-pack to get started for your day. Like it's not fun. It's not glamorous. It's not a party.
Right.
It's Wednesday.
Yeah.
And it's 10 a.m. And really, like, that's how you're gonna, I mean, I guess like I just kind of stopped believing my own lies about it, that this was like okay, that this was something normal or even sustainable. And my relationships in my life were suffering. I wasn't really, I mean, I knew that like my parenting was definitely nowhere to be seen. And my work itself was starting to suffer. Like sure. The one thing that was kind of keeping me going through all of it is like it was less and less reliable. Like, being able to perform, being able to sing, being able to write. It's like if you actually do listen back to some wonderful idea you have when you're wasted, and then listen back to it later, like what? It's like some scat thing, like, oh, in my head I hear this like and like listen to that later on, it just sounds like an insane person, like like on the bus. But yeah, so I mean, it wasn't doing what it once did, and it was just like apparent that if I wanted anything different, I'd have to do something different. And I was just kind of in a state of willingness that I was ready to admit to strangers that I had a problem, and that I wanted to do something about it. And also like the example of people around me who had changed
sure.
was definitely like okay, I don't know what to do anymore because I can't stop. I don't know what to do, but they've done something. So what they do, I'll do that. It's sort of that simple. And then I got introduced to you and introduced to like really strong fellowship group of people like in the Phoenix area who take it seriously and do the work, and just kind of follow along with what they're doing, and
it worked.
Yeah, I got the results.
Yeah,
I did some work, got some results.
What's it? So then fast forward a little ways. Early recovery. As I've gone back and listened to your music pre-sobriety and then like in the early stages of sobriety, because I think you released an album somewhere in your first year or so.
Yeah.
and then subsequent albums. You've done I think you're a great lyricist, and you've done a good job of
thanks.
Of poetically putting out the stuff that's going on in your head. And I guess that's what it's all about as a rock star, is to make art out of this stuff that's going on. But as I listen to it, I can hear your journey progressing.
Oh, sure.
How did it feel like that first album in recovery? Like writing that down? Did it just flow out? Was that pent up energy waiting to come out? Were you like, I'm going to make this about recovery? Because it's not like a recovery album, but I can hear recovery in it just because I know you and I listen to the music and I'm like, oh, I see what you did there.
Right, yeah.
How intentional was it, or did it just come out like all the other albums?
It's just about like, every record that we do, it takes us about 3 years to put out a record. And that's hasn't been an intentional plan of ours, but It just seems to work that way.
It's just the natural cycle.
Yeah. So there's like, a decent amount of life to talk about and to think about in between those things.
Yeah.
And, that's just kind of like what was going on with me. It's like, this is just, the process itself wasn't much different than how we had approached any other record.
Sure.
But I mean, we're talking about like Integrity Blues. It was like the first record that we wrote where I was totally sober. And, it's just sort of, I mean, that's what was going on. It's just sort of like a document of like what's happening in the years between the last record, the last thing I wrote. I mean, really, and that could go in any number of directions, but really, it was tough to think about anything other than just the fundamentals of recovery.
Yeah.
Everything else seems sort of like I just saw instantly through my own complaining. And then I couldn't write about that. It was like, I get going on something like, oh man, this is so messed up. I feel so bad about this. Wait a minute. Here's what's wrong with that. And here's where you're wrong in that. It's like, I saw through it instantly. So it was like, all right, well then what do I want to say? It's like, well, what's behind that? That was what was interesting to me. And that kind of got to the really the fundamentals. And in a way, it's not that different from some of the earlier things that I was working on, but just didn't have the intentionality to address it head on. Like,
and you've had greater insight as you've aged, right? And
yeah.
So each album, it's a little bit. It's got a layer of sophistication that's added with age, and you become a better storyteller as time goes on. You can get your points across in a more simple fashion.
It's a combination of just the things I've learned through taking that kind of somewhat scary willingness to look at my life honestly, mixed with just like what happens when you get older. I think it's like it's a confluence of both of those things, and building on like what I've learned through my experience of just working on music.
Sure.
Every time you write, you learn something about writing, no matter what you're writing about. Anytime you look for something to write about, you learn about yourself. So it's like, that's just what happens with time and experience and keeping doing this. So it's like, combine all those things together and you get like our last two albums, really.
The last time you and I sat down and talked, we were talking about, I can't think of the name of the song. You have this line in the new album talking about preparing for a title fight with only montage training time.
Yeah, it's a song called Diamond.
Yeah, Diamond. Excellent piece of music. All compliments aside, I love that line. Yeah. It's really, really good. I found myself feeling like, if I look back through my life, I've felt like that a bunch of different times. It's not like a feeling I have constantly, but I could, when I heard you say it, I was like, wow, I really identify with that. I've got a title fight and I'm barely ready, if I could even say I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's that song is about it's about a couple things, but it's basically about the, this is all just a process over time. Like, that's how anything changes. That's how anything gets better. And it's about, the small victories, kind of like building and building and building and letting that in. We have such a problem. I still have such a hard time like letting the small victories in.
Because you want it to be like a Facebook type success.
No, I mean, because
looking for big moments.
You want the finish line. But it's really not. I mean, so much more of your time is spent like working really hard with no one clapping and no one else around and no one even knowing that you're putting the work in.
Yeah.
So it's like, that is where you got to find the reward in what you're doing, because that's going to be 99% of your time. It's like, your finish line comes, you're done. That's it.
It's the beginning of end of the game is the beginning of the next game.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, all you really have is your effort and time, and that's where you have to find the reward in doing anything at all.
Yeah. And I don't know what produces that mind frame of like, if I don't win right out of the gate, then I suck at life. I don't know what produces that mindset, but I feel like a lot of people are probably guilty of that.
Of like
handicapped by it.
Self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's because of your it's just like a lack of self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a fear of rejection.
Yeah, fear of failure.
But no, I mean, really, who cares? Like like you didn't accomplish that. It's like if there's anything I've learned in doing music for 26 years somewhat professionally now, it's like however many people you think care, more don't. Really. Right. Like Taylor Swift selling out stadiums, more people don't care however big you are, like more people don't care, and it's like this weight you're putting on yourself to be flawless right away, and then like ceasing that ambition or goal because you're not flawless right away, and and worse,
that's taking, what's dangerous about
taking that basically encountering, and this is really a tricky thing, no matter what stage you're at, but taking that first sign of resistance as a sign of worthlessness,
right,
or a sign of failure, or a sign of like, I guess no one's gonna like this anyway, I guess I just can't do this anyway. Like at the first sign of resistance, when something feels hard, like.
Mm-hmm. And as you say that, I'm transposing that over like relationships. I'm transposing it over entrepreneurship. I'm transposing it over fitness.
Yeah, everything.
Dieting, anything. It's like, oh, I suck at this. I just suck at life, and it just goes straight from like minor speed bump to like total nosedive.
Yeah. It's like, oh man, like I ate that whole pint. I guess I guess I'll eat this tray of brownies too while I'm at it. It's like, no, I mean
that type of mentality.
Yeah, or
super self-defeating.
I drank last night. Well, I guess I'm going to the bar first thing right now. It's like at every single moment is a unique opportunity, and you forget that that at any point you have a choice. You can do something that's that's you can do anything you want at any moment. It's like you're not stuck in what has happened before. You're never, and that's no matter what kind of lies you'll tell yourself. Like you can do. I mean, you might not exactly meet the expectations you're setting, but you can move in that direction.
And I think that's the takeaway. Even from that song, that's what I'm taking away from it, is like, you know what, man, sometimes life's fucking hard, and the things that I'm aspiring to are difficult. And they will take time, and I'm not going to be great at everything I try the first time. In fact, I'm going to suck at a lot of stuff until I practice.
You might never like, play flawless, sight reading, flawless piano, but like you can get better.
Yeah. I can get better.
That's everything. You're never going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger like in his prime, or you might not be, but you can get better.
Yeah.
You can definitely there are being satisfied with incremental progress is so important, and letting that in and letting that build your resolve to take on the next incremental challenge.
God, it has so much to do with being right-sized. I think a lot of people, maybe more alcoholics and addicts than others, but maybe not. Maybe it's just a thing with humans. But it seems like we have such a hard time being right-sized, where it's like, oh, I'm either I either overvalue what I bring to the table, or I drastically undervalue what I'm bringing to the table. It's like this balance of finding like where I am right now in this current state, and knowing that things can improve incrementally if I put in the effort. And I don't know how much, and being and not hitting myself over the head with a club if I fail, or if I don't win as much as I think I should.
I think these thoughts and these impediments to feeling like a sense of self-worth, they are universal. I mean, but I think it's especially it's life and death for an addict or alcoholic. But the underlying themes of that, like even for like the normal person who'll pour out half a beer, like they still struggle with the exact same thing. I was kind of struck once I started really feeling like recovery was clicking for me. Like I got it.
How long were you sober when you felt like that?
Almost right away. We can talk about that in a minute, but like I started looking at the things that like the self-help industry were saying. We're basically paraphrasing stuff that I would hear at every meeting. Right. Like it's the same thing. The fundamentals are exactly the same, except like it's free. Yeah. To invest fully in recovery is free. It doesn't cost anything, but you could get any, I think it could help anybody, but it'll save your life if you're an alcoholic. Like that's just where it's at. And for me, like it did click early on because I think I had such a great, initial acceptance of my situation. I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Then this is what's real. It's like, I really heard myself when I would say it out loud. My threshold between in control and out of control is going from 0 to 1. What's that mean? That means that like, it's just not an option for me anymore. It just really isn't. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do about that? Like, what am I going to put in that place? What am I going to do? So it's like, this is what I have to do. And I got that sense of incremental progress, that reward from incremental progress, like right away, like in just making that step of admitting and conceding that I was an alcoholic, and everything that meant is like, that's me. Doesn't have to mean that it just means you have to do different things. It doesn't mean that you're less of a person or like you have intrinsically less self-worth, but it means you do have to do some different things than what you're doing.
Well, yeah, it means you have a disease that needs to be treated. Right. And it sounds like you surrendered totally. There was like a page turned and you were like, all right, this is what I'm going to deal with this now. Right.
And I think also like songwriting, what you do is you ask yourself, how I approach songwriting is like you ask yourself, something pops in your head and it's interesting in a way. Or you walk past it and back up and have to look at it again because it's interesting. Something catches your attention, and then you ask yourself a question about that, and that leads to maybe one or two different answers, which you ask yourself more questions about, and then you have this, you carry that on for a while, and then you end up with a giant tree of your thoughts, your feelings, your whatever's going on with you. And that leads to creating something. So I have been kind of conditioned to that sense of reward from self-examination. And the rewards I got from admitting that I was an alcoholic and taking action were like, I could see that reward immediately in how I felt. First off, I wasn't like, I was instantly rewarded with the physical separation between alcohol, of not feeling like a waste-weight in the morning and having to drink. That felt better. And I had something to do in its place. And doing that thing led to, feeling even better. So it's like, I was able to take in the incremental reward from taking the incrementally hard tasks.
Yeah.
And that like kept me going. I was like, what's next? Oh, this is so cool. Like, oh yeah, this is great. This is interesting. This is adventure. Saying yes to this is brand new. And what comes on the other side of that is something that I would never have experienced before. And that was a reward in itself, just the new experience.
That's interesting when you say it that way. Because when I look back at my recovery journey, I feel similar. Like it really was an adventure. I mean, it still is in many ways. There was so much fear behind it, but as I continued,
right.
I started to have some faith that the outcome of whatever this next thing is I'm up to is probably going to be positive. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's probably going to be better than what I've been doing.
And even if it's not, it's going to be entertaining. it'll be entertaining, you know, like I don't know what's going to happen, but you know, who knows? Like, you know, like, do you want to, hey, no one showed up to speak today. Do you want to speak at this meeting? Like, okay. Yeah. You know, and then you do it and you don't die and you learn something about yourself. And like, you think like, and some, you know, maybe someone comes up to after you and says, oh man, I really like what you said there. Like I was totally thinking the same thing. That's a reward. It's like, oh wow, like I did this thing that I never thought I would be able to do. And I didn't only accomplish that, but like I got, you know, I helped somebody with it.
There's a connection.
Yeah. It's like, this is something I didn't even know that I valued. And I've been, and now like wow, like I'm that guy. Like, whoa, I never thought I would be that. And that was a reward.
Yeah. And there's so many ways that those rewards come, and a lot of them come in the form of connection, like that example you just gave, where we connect with people that we otherwise wouldn't, in ways that we otherwise wouldn't. And then likewise with our family, friends, colleagues, people we work with, we can connect with them in a deeper way, in a more meaningful way. Right.
One of the things that I did in early recovery to kind of like, I also kind of understood right away that recovery is about what you're going to do, not what you're trying to avoid. Because I'd spent a long time trying to avoid, and it wasn't working too well. You know, like don't drink. That doesn't work. What works is like, okay, so you're in a situation where there's drinking. What are you going to do? Like, okay, well, I am going to order a club soda, and I am going to just be, I mean, one of the things that really like was an eye opener that I hadn't really done before is like everybody I come in contact with, I'm going to be as present as possible. I'm going to, you know, make it the interaction not really about me, but just be as present as possible with everybody I come in contact with. And that was an intentional thing that I would do. Instead of trying to avoid drinking, I would be as present as possible with everybody I came in contact with. And that was like such a crazy, rewarding experience, you know, like, oh. And when you're present with people, like it makes them feel good and you get that feedback from them immediately. You know, it's kind of like, oh man, like, oh, this is different. I never thought that this would, you know, this feels good being able to do that.
It's a huge insight and helps deepen your connection with other people.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, you know, that's kind of like,
as you say it, I'm already reviewing my own behavior and I'm like, I suck at that. I should do that more.
I mean, it's sort of like, yeah, I mean, and even the very first, meeting I went to in recovery was like, it really, you can walk up to anybody and say your name and hi, and they're totally cool. Right back at you, you know, like it's really, I mean, that's kind of what the connection is, what it's all about, you know, and then just in building that connection in different ways that you're able to in your life.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't connect with people in a meaningful way prior to recovery. Not that I didn't want to, because I did. I think I told myself because I was so bad at it. Mm-hmm. I think I told myself that I didn't want to, that I would rather be alone, and I would rather be by myself, but it's not true.
Because you can control isolating.
Right.
When you're right. Like you're driving that ship into the ground when you're like, you know, isolating.
Yeah.
Like I'm in control. It's a control power grab to isolate.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, you don't have to, it's not, again, like failing to meet your own expectations and the negative reward cycle that comes in with that. It's like, forget about that. Like, your only goal is just to be present. Like, forget about what happens. Forget about the outcome. Just listen to somebody. Like, look them in the eyes, listen to what they have to say, you know, maybe follow up on a thing or two that they say, and just try to really understand where they are right now. You know, like, that's good.
It's huge.
That's how you get good at connecting with people, is like, you just listen. Like, you take your side of it out of the picture entirely.
I don't know about all of England, but definitely in London, they look at you and go, "You all right?" And it took me like a week to be like, to get it. They're not asking me if I'm physically okay. They're doing the U.S. version of "How are you?"
Right.
Which
you start breaking down. No, man.
The first time somebody's like, "You all right?" I was like, "I think so. I mean, yeah, I'm good. I'm all right." And then after like a week, I was like, "Yeah, good. How are you?" And they were like, "Good." And I got it, right? And it's one of those. It was one of those reminding moments for me that, like, it's just a salutation, and how often we say that. We ask each other how we are, and I don't fucking care how you are. I'm just saying hi. And
yeah, it's an automated kind of thing.
Yeah, and taking the time to actually ask someone how they're doing. And here's a weird thing. So I will sometimes ask someone how they're doing, and with the intention of actually being present, holding space, and finding out how their day was. And their knee-jerk reaction is, "I'm great, how are you?" It's like,
yeah, it's the 14-year-old coming home from school. How was school? Good.
But I think we're also conditioned to that.
Yeah.
Shit, somebody asked me how I'm doing. I respond with what I expect they expect, which is, "I'm good, how are you?"
Right.
And I'm always surprised when they're like, "No, seriously, how was your day?" And I'm like, "Oh, you actually want to know what my day was like?"
Right.
Wow. Okay. We could talk about that, I suppose. How was your day?
Yeah.
Did you work? Did you have the day off? Did you hang out with the kids? So now that you're many years into your journey, how do you, and you spend a lot of time on the road, how do you take this new life with you when you travel?
You know, like some of the, it's kind of the same thing as it was early on. Like you know, I guess I quit drinking a month before we went on like a year and a half of touring.
Perfect timing.
I know, it's great. Yeah. But you know, it worked because of like, there's no shortage of new places to look to, you know, that adventure exists. Like, every day you're in a new city, every day you're around completely different people. It's like there's all this experience that you've never really had before that is waiting for you to just be present and take it. So it was really easy to not drink early on, because I had that plan in place of like what I was going to do, not what I was going to avoid. If you're doing this thing right, like you're just so busy with what you're doing, you don't have time for that negative voice to come in and start telling you what you shouldn't do and how you'll never actually really be able not to do it. So you might as well do it.
How easy was it to find other people in recovery abroad?
Oh, it's super easy. Like, you know, I've been to meetings all over the world now. It's kind of like a new form of tourism in a way. You know, like, let's
see what the drunks are like in this town.
Yeah, no, really. Like it's because it's everywhere. If you have like a smartphone, you can find a fellowship that specifically addresses almost any ism that might be expressing itself in your life anywhere in the world.
It's pretty rad.
Multiple times a day, usually, and in different languages. So, you know, if you're willing to look, you know, there's a lot of I've been on a lot of adventurous runs looking for meetings. You know, sometimes not.
Likewise.
Sometimes not in the best part of town, and probably not ending up with people I would hang out with normally, but that's
the adventure.
That's completely the reward of going into the unknown, and whatever comes on the other side of that is awesome. It's really not. I mean, it's fearful at first, but like, no one asks you to do everything right away. It's something you build on, and you take a little bit of in that you like I said before, like everything builds on itself until you are taking gigantic leaps in success or a negative outcome at the end of that. Like, you're okay. But that's no one's going to ask you to do that at first.
No.
If you might be thinking about like looking more into anything that we're talking about here.
There are a lot of people out there in the world that are not getting into recovery, even though they desperately need it and desperately want it, for a number of reasons. If there's somebody that's watching this and they're teetering on the edge, maybe they have been for days, maybe they have been for years, but somebody's watching this and they're going, fuck, man, one of these days I need to do this too. What would you say to somebody that's struggling right now?
I would say I get it. It took me a real long time to take any meaningful action. There was a lot of fear about what would be on the other side of that. I totally understand. No one's perfect. No one's going to, no one's going to do this thing perfectly. It's not about being perfect, though. It's about like, a reduction in self-harm. If you can be happy with like things getting just a little bit better, you'll probably like it, and you'll probably see what happens if things can get a lot better. But it just starts with a willingness. Like, what the most insurmountable problem can always be broken down to what you have willingness to do. Like, I've been on the phone with people before who are like, man, I'm not getting out of bed today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what to do. I'm just kind of like, I'm totally lost. I'm not leaving my house. It's like, well, do you have the willingness to, like, maybe they don't even have the willingness to get out of bed. Do you have the willingness to, like, close your eyes for a second and maybe just breathe and not and make a promise to yourself that you're not going to think about how you're not willing to get out of bed? Like, can you breathe with your eyes closed for 10 minutes? Can you do that? Okay. All right, then maybe do you have the willingness to get out of bed? Maybe they do. Yeah, do you have the willingness to make your bed now? Do you have the willingness to brush your teeth? Maybe take a shower? It's like, there's always a place you can break it down to where you do have willingness to move in the direction of progress. And, that's just a person by person thing, and no one's going to judge you for if it's just a little bit or if it's a lot. Because everyone's starting at different places, and everyone has a different set of like what they're willing to do and what they aren't. And that's okay. Like, maybe you'll go to a meeting, but you're not willing to stand up and say that, tell strangers that you're an alcoholic. But maybe you'll go and you'll see someone stand up, and that will say, like, and then watch them stand up and then sit back down again and stay alive. Then that will give you some sort of sense.
Not burst into flames.
Yeah. I think that if you are feeling that way, and you are able to, take that step of willingness no matter how small, like there's somebody else that isn't. And, you know, by your example, you can show them it's okay that they can. You know, like every, and if you're willing to look at, as, you know, if you're willing to look at life that way, then I mean, that's what to me, that's what the psychic change that comes with you know, working recovery is all about. You start looking at things for where you can contribute rather than what you can get out of it. And you'd be surprised at how much you actually get.
Speaking of psychic change, how much different, if you could quantify, how much different is your life? Granted, you still play guitar for a living, but how much different is your perspective in your life now that you've had a psychic change?
Oh man, it's 100% different.
It's not like 3%.
Yeah, I do. It's like 9,000% different. No, I mean it's like I'm able to really take in, you know, a sense of gratefulness for being able to have the opportunity to do what I do. And, you know, smaller and smaller things mean more. Like smaller and smaller things are bigger and bigger rewards to continue to do what I'm doing. You know, I'm definitely able to see that, like, especially now, like there's so much competition for your time. Like anybody, you know, taking the time to sit down and really digest something that I've worked on, like, is a huge compliment. You know, and I don't expect that, but I'm definitely grateful for it.
Well, it's good music, so.
Oh, thanks. Well, you know, I work hard at it.
Yeah, it's good music. Well, my hope is that that talks like these will help people like us out there that have not found their way to the sunshine yet, have not found their way in out of the rain yet. So I deeply, deeply appreciate not just the music that you make, the countless hours and years that you've put into service to others for free and for fun, but I just appreciate you being here today and just talking about real shit with me. I really do.
Yeah,
and thank you for the T-shirt.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you know, it's kind of like it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, because really it's like this is the only thing that means anything to me anymore now. Is like what's behind the problem. Mm-hmm. What's the real solution? It's kind of all I can think of. I frame everything that comes in my life through the lens of recovery now. It's
wild, right?
It's totally wild. But it's like I'm always rewarded by that presence of mind and that intentionality behind the actions.
It was like this, in my view, it was like this ancillary thing I was going to try that probably wasn't going to work. I didn't know it was going to change everything.
Yeah.
And become like the focal point of my existence.
Yeah. Well, it's like you hear people, you know, with some time in recovery talk about how like whatever program they're in has given them a quote unquote life beyond their wildest imagination. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like, it makes sense on a real practical level, because you're doing things that weren't your idea. You're going to end up in a place that is beyond your imagination. And the shocking thing is I think for me anyway, when you really get on the other side of that, you discover that you value things that you had no idea that you were important. You discover that, you know, the reward from spending time in the unknown, and, you know, and like your sense of fear diminishing. And it's really incomprehensible if you're on the other side of that, looking up at it and being in a paralyzation from fear.
Yeah.
It's a wild ride. It's crazy, but you know, it's like, it feels like truly living. Like,
it does.
I was a passenger in my own body for 36 years, and now I'm like awake.
That's why they call it a spiritual awakening.
I guess so. You should write that down. That's a good one.
We should write that down.
Yeah, we should write that down.
They should write a book about it. It's pretty awesome. Well, yeah. You're like I said, you're of service to a ton of people in addition to the wonderful music you write and play, you help people all the time, and just want to say thank you for all that you do, man.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, man. Likewise. Thanks for having me on.
Should we hug? Should there be music?
I don't know. What's going to happen underneath this?
I don't know.
Surprise me when it comes out. Let's see.
Okay.